Hi, it's Mark at Rely on Us, another quick simple DIY how-to video for you. This time it's about changing a lock. Now there are two types of locks. There are a sash lock and a deadlock. A sash lock is a lock that requires a pair of handles, so you've got a latch feature. A deadlock is just the lower half, it's the deadbolt at the bottom. Now this particular one obviously is a sash lock, so I'm just going to quickly show you how to change a lock in a door that's a sash lock. So first thing you've got to do is you unscrew the handles from one side. Should come off relatively simple. Now the reason you're doing this is, I'll show you now, when the handle comes off, there's a bar that goes from one side of the door to the other, which fixes the two handles together, and that operates this latch bit at the top. So you need to remove that bar out of the door, and then down the edge of the door you'll find usually two retaining screws that are holding the lock in place in the door. So you need to unscrew those. Again, should be relatively easy to unscrew. That's one, that's two. Now depending on how tight the lock's been fitted in, sometimes with a little bit of gentle persuasion you can pull the lock out. This one's a little bit tighter, so what I tend to find is if you get a screwdriver and just down the edge of the door where the handle would normally be, if you just give it a little bit of a push, then that should slide out. Yeah, that's out. Right, okay, so once the lock's out, you can decide what type of lock it is. Now this is only an internal door lock, but it's 3 inches deep. There are two sizes. There are 2.5 inch and 3 inch. So the easiest way to find out what size lock it is, get a tape measure, and you want to be measuring from the front edge of the lock to where the keyhole is. Now on this one, it's 2.5 inches to the center of the keyhole and 3 inches to the back edge of the lock. So this is a 3 inch lock. So your best bet, to be perfectly honest with you, is once you've taken the lock out the door, if possible, take it into your local DIY shop, hardware shop, and just ask them to replace it, because there are a few different makes and models, and unfortunately, they aren't all the same. So you've been into your local DIY shop, you've bought your new lock, take it back home, and then it's just replacing it back into the door. It's the same steps as taking it out, but just in reverse. So obviously the first thing you've got to do is put your lock back in the edge of the door. Hopefully you've managed to do a light for light, so it's just a case of just slipping the lock back in the door. Your screws top and bottom, that's one. That's two. That quick nip up. Your bar back in, because obviously if you don't put this in, your handles aren't going to operate. So that goes back in and gets pushed through. And then lastly, you put your handle back on. Make sure that's back in place. And then it's your final two screws. Just make sure I've lined that up right, which I haven't. That's it, that's better. That's one, and lastly, that's two. So give the lock a quick try on the handle first. So that's all working fine, and then if I grab my keys, just check to make sure that the bolt's throwing at the bottom. Make sure you use the right key. Yeah, that's working fine. So that's how you replace a lock on a door. And it's the same principle for internal or external doors.